We begin with more stunning allegations against British tabloid News of the World. The Daily Mirror is reporting that staffers with the now defunct paper tried to hack into the phones of 9/11 victims. Owner Rupert Murdoch arrived in London to personally deal with the scandal now. CNN's Zane Verjee live in London with all the breaking developments. Zane?
Hi, Kira. Yeah, what they're doing is the British tabloid The Mirror is quoting a former New York City cop that's making these allegations that News of the World journalists tried to hack into the mailboxes and the voicemails of victims of 9/11. Now, this former cop says he was contacted by News of the World journalists who said that they would pay him to retrieve these phone records right the way through to 9/11, calls to the relatives to give them the ability to see exactly who the victims were talking to up until 9/11. Now, this former New York City cop is now a private investigator, and he is saying, according to the Daily Mirror report, that he turned this down. He said, absolutely no way, I am not going to do this. A little bit of caution here. It is only the Daily Mirror here that is reporting this supposed 9/11 hacking claim, and we don't know for a fact, Kira, whether it actually did happen.
But meanwhile, the family of this murdered girl whose phone was hacked is going to meet with the Deputy Prime Minister, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, there is so much outrage over that, and what their family wants is an apology from Rupert Murdoch, and that hasn't happened. The thing is that public opinion here is so far out ahead of the government. People here are so outraged over that story, as well as the overall situation with News of the World, that the government is really jumping up here and needs to act. One of the things that they're considering is blocking this big deal, a takeover bid by Rupert Murdoch of British Sky Broadcasting here, and that is a big cause of concern and debate here right now. People don't want to see that deal go through, Kira.
Al, we'll continue to follow the story. I have a feeling a lot more is going to break. It's just starting to unfold. Zane, thanks. Well, high stakes and heated rhetoric in the debt negotiations. President Obama is still trying to broker a deal. And less than 2 hours from now, he's going to turn to the public with a morning news conference. Dan Lothian's at the White House. Kate Baldwin's on Capitol Hill. Dan, let's go ahead and start with you. What's the holdup?
Well, look, there's still this big divide because there are those liberal Democrats who don't want to see those entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security touched as part of this deal. And on the other side, Republicans are simply saying no tax hikes at all. And so what you're seeing is the president using his bully pulpit, if you will, for the second time now in as many weeks. The president holding a press conference, a chance to try to get both sides to sit down and hammer out an agreement and spell out what the consequences will be if that debt ceiling isn't raised by August 2nd. The president, aides tell me, will continue to push for what has been called that bigger deal, up to $4 trillion in spending cuts and also tax hikes. And the reason for that is because the president believes that this is the best thing for the U.S. economy in the long term.
All right, Dan, let's get the view from Congress now. Kate Baldwin on the Hill. So, Kate, what is the reaction or the expected reaction to the meeting?
Kira, the reaction and statements that we are getting following the meeting really show that deep divisions remain. Probably no surprise from what you were hearing from Dan, between Democrats and Republicans. Very little, if any, progress seems to have been made towards a final deal, as both sides really seem to be dug in, if not more dug in, on these key sticking points, especially in terms of the issue of taxes. Just a couple statements that are really politically charged coming out last night. The spokesman for the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, saying in a statement, calling it, quote, baffling that Democrats and the president continue to try to raise taxes in the middle of a jobs crisis. At the same time, almost like it was firing back, the Senate Majority Leader, the Democrat Harry Reid, his spokesman, charges that Republicans are trying to continue to try to take the easy way out. Republicans say there's no support for tax increases. Democrats say revenue has to be part of this deal, this, quote, balanced approach, if they're going to accept significant spending cuts. Bottom line, Kira, one point of agreement as these talks continue is that something needs to be done, it seems, between these negotiators, but how we get there seems to be a big question.
All right, it sure is. And we'll continue to try and find the answers from you and Dan. Thanks, guys. Well, stay with us for President Obama's news conference less than 2 hours from now. It's scheduled for 11 Eastern. You can see it live right here on CNN. Well, with the hopes that they'll crack down on terrorists, the White House will withhold $800 million in aid to Pakistan's military. The U.S. is trying to pressure Pakistan to crack down on the militants. Meanwhile, a suicide bomber struck at a political rally in northwest Pakistan. At least 6 people were killed there, another 15 wounded. And the death toll is rising from an explosion at a naval base in Cyprus. At least 12 soldiers were killed when munitions on a cargo ship caught fire. It's not yet known how that fire started. The blast was so huge, it knocked out power to the nation's largest electricity plant, which is right near that base. A conservative Christian group has retracted a controversial passage about slavery from its marriage pledge, but not before 2 presidential candidates actually signed on to it. Deputy Political Director Paul Steinhauser has the rest of the story here, reading between the lines.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, I hear a lot of people talking about this story. First of all, it's Iowa, the first caucus state. That's why it's such a spotlight. That's where all the presidential candidates go. We're talking about the family leader. It's one of the top social conservative groups in Iowa, very influential. And, of course, social conservative voters in Iowa, very, very important. And we're talking about traditional marriage. This all started, this is a pledge for the candidates to sign to promote fidelity with your spouse and also to promote traditional marriage, not same-sex marriage. But here's the problem, the preamble, and I will read it. It says, slavery had a disastrous impact on African-American families, yet sadly a child born into slavery in 1860 was more likely to be raised by his mother and father in a 2-parent household than was an African-American baby born after the election of the USA's first African-American president. That's where the trouble started. Well, the family leader, after the story got around, guess what they did? They took that preamble out, and it's no longer in the pledge. But 2 candidates had already signed that pledge. Michelle Bachmann, the congresswoman from neighboring Minnesota, and Rick Santorum, the former senator from Pennsylvania. Now it seems like both those campaigns are doing a little bit of damage control. Here's what the Bachmann team said. In no uncertain terms, Congresswoman Bachmann believes that slavery was horrible and economic enslavement is also horrible. And this from Senator Santorum's campaign. Senator Santorum believed it was the right thing for the Iowa family leader to remove the language from the preamble to the pledge about slavery. But, Kira, this just goes to show how much trouble you can get in when something like this gets involved in presidential politics. Kira?
Oh, yeah. Well, Michelle Bachmann also involved in a war of words with Tim Pawlenty, right?
Oh, yeah, because, again, all about Iowa, such a crucial state. You know, it's the first caucus state, the first state to vote in the caucuses and primaries. It's a state very important for Bachmann to do well in, and Pawlenty, the former governor of neighboring Minnesota. He is known as Mr. Nice Guy, but just in the last couple days, he's had some tough language at Bachmann, saying her record of accomplishment in Congress is non-existent. She responded yesterday, digging at him. This war of words is heating up. We're only a month away from a crucial straw poll in Iowa. I think you're going to hear more of this battling between Republican presidential candidates. Kira?
All right, Paul Steinhauser, thanks so much. We'll have your next political update in about an hour. You can also get all the latest political news on our website, cnnpolitics.com. Well, NASA's tracking some space debris that might threaten the International Space Station. Right now, scientists can't say if it puts the crew in any jeopardy. They do know, though, it will come closest to the ISS around midday tomorrow, the same day Atlantis astronauts plan a spacewalk. Checking stories cross country in Brownwood, Texas. Funeral services will be held today for the fan who fell to his death trying to catch a ball in the stands. The Texas Rangers baseball team is setting up a fund for Shannon Stone's family. The club is already working on making changes to improve fan safety there at the stadium. And this is in Provo, Utah. The sales team at Adaptive Computing really know how to celebrate hitting its sales goal. With the boss's permission, the team got to blow up his 1995 Mitsubishi as a reward. Well done. And this little guy set a record at a hospital in Longview, Texas. Jamichael Brown is the biggest baby ever born there. You ready for this? 16 pounds. He was delivered by C-section, of course, and his parents say no more kids. Prince William and his bride Kate wrapping up their North American tour with 3 days in Los Angeles. They're back in the UK now, but not before leaving quite an impression on the folks in LA. Max Foster has the rest of their tour.
After taking Canada by storm, it was time to visit California. The Duke and Duchess invited some friends around to the Consul General's house where they were staying. The next morning, it was off to Santa Barbara for a game of polo. The Duke was, in his own words, looking forward to letting loose after a busy few days. His team won, and a proud Duchess presented her husband with a trophy and a kiss. On Saturday night, they hit the red carpet. Well, the Duchess has arrived, and she hasn't disappointed. The dress by Alexander McQueen wowed the Hollywood A-listers inside. From the red carpet to Skid Row. On Sunday, the couple threw themselves into an art class with kids from this very deprived neighbourhood. The artistic Duchess showing her skills. And their last engagement was a war veterans' job fair. So this is the final stop on this very successful North American royal tour. But in many ways, this is the most important stop, particularly for the Duke.
I would just say, on behalf of us both, how grateful we are to have been welcomed so warmly in the Golden State and City of Angels. Thank you so much.
The public would have liked to have got closer to the couple in America, but the trip has confirmed them as the biggest stars on the planet right now.